Hola, ¿qué tal? In this video we're going to revise Unit 1 of the A-Level Spanish topic, los cambios en la estructura familiar. I'll guide you through the key themes, go over some grammar, and share useful tips on vocabulary. So we will revise and analyze the diversity in different types of family. We'll also talk about the debate between living together and getting married, as well as what is happening with marriage and divorce. In grammar, we will brush upon the present tense of regular verbs, irregular verbs, and reflexive verbs, and quickly revise the agreement and position of the adjectives. Finally, we will go over the key vocabulary for this topic. Let's start with grammar. The sooner we get it out of the way, the better. I know you've learned most of this in GCSE, but if you don't quite remember, I will leave you a link to a grammar video about regular verbs in the description. Anyway, remember that we have three groups of infinitive verbs: aer group, er group, and ir group. And when conjugating, you need to use the right ending depending on the group. So it will be like this. For example, the verb disfrutar, to enjoy, it would be yo disfruto, tú disfrutas, él disfruta, nosotros disfrutamos, vosotros disfrutáis, ellos disfrutan. Or the verb to give in, ceder, cedo, cedes, cedes, cedemos, cedéis, ceden. You need to add the right ending depending who is doing the action. Or finally, the verb asumir, to assume, would be asumo, I assume, tú asumes, you assume, él asume, asumimos, asumís, asuman. I consider this part easy and I don't want to waste your time. So let's move on to irregular verbs. We have two types of irregular verbs, the stem-changing verbs and those that are irregular but only in the first person. Let's look at the stem-changing verbs in first place. We have three groups. The group where the stem O becomes UE, for example, in the verb poder, when conjugated I can, is yo puedo. The second group where E becomes IE, the stem becomes IE. For example, perder, to lose, I lose, would be yo pierdo. And the third group where the stem E becomes I when conjugating. For example, pedir, I ask, it would be yo pido. When conjugating, you need to change all the stems except for nosotros and vosotros. It would be like yo puedo, tú puedes, él puede, and then nosotros podemos. Notice that I haven't changed the stem. Vosotros podéis, no change, and we need to change for they can, ellos pueden. Also, we have the type of irregular verbs only in the first person. Let's see some examples with the verbs saber, conocer, hacer, tener. So, I know, yo sé, or I know people, yo conozco, I do, it would be yo hago, and I have, yo tengo. Well, although not always is quite like this, because we have verbs like tener that it also a stem changing verb. Look at it. So it would be I have, yo tengo, and then tú tienes, él tiene. We don't change the stem when tenemos, tenéis, and then tienen. Finally, I had to add the verb ir because it's the king of irregular verbs. The conjugation, as you can see, has nothing to do with the infinitive. It would be yo voy, tú vas, él o ella va, nosotros vamos, vosotros vais, ellos van. If you're still unsure about these verbs, I'll leave you a link to a grammar video where I explain them in more detail with extra examples. And now reflexive verbs. What is a reflexive verb? It's a verb where the action goes back to the person doing it. In other words, the subject and the object are the same person. In Spanish, reflexive verbs use reflexive pronouns me, te, se, nos, os, se to show that the action reflects back on the subject. And the meaning of these reflexive pronouns are not I, you, he, she. No, it's myself, yourself, himself, herself, ourselves, themselves, etc. So let's see an example with the verb quejarse, to complain. So remember that you need to conjugate it as a normal verb, but you need to add in front of the verb the reflexive pronouns. You can use the subject pronouns or not, it's up to you. So you can say me quejo or yo me quejo. Don't mix them out with the gustar pronouns, that they are very similar but not quite the same. Me, te, le, nos, os, les. If you want to know more about reflexive verbs or gustar verbs, I'll leave a link to another video about this. Let's look at the adjectives now, their position and agreement. Spanish nouns are masculine or feminine, and adjectives have changed to match that gender. Most masculine adjectives end in O, and most feminine adjectives end in A. For example, if we are speaking about el altar, which is masculine, we need to agree colorido. Or la iglesia, which is feminine, we need to agree antigua. Remember that if the adjective doesn't end in O, it stays the same for both genders. For example, you can say el primo inteligente o la prima inteligente. I haven't changed the gender. O el primo feliz o la prima feliz, o el primo joven o la prima joven. I haven't changed the gender. You only need to change the gender into A when the adjective ends in O. Regarding number, adjectives also need to be changed if the noun is plural. To make it plural, we add an S when the adjective ends in a vowel, or ES when the adjective ends in a consonant. For example, los altares coloridos, you can see that we have add ES or just S, or los primos jóvenes. Again, you'll find a link in the description because this was a brief explanation. Let's take a look at some more examples. For example, again, la iglesia is feminine singular, therefore antigua needs to be in singular feminine. Los altares coloridos, again, los altares is masculine plural, therefore coloridos needs to be masculine plural. Or in the sentence, hay una gran devoción profunda y sincera. Profunda y sincera needs to agree in gender and number with the devoción, which is feminine and singular. O los cantos religiosos, alegres y emotivos, masculine plural. Have you noticed the word gran? That is an apocopation. We will check out what apocopation is in a minute, but before that we need to revise the position of the adjectives. The natural position of the adjectives is after the noun. However, there is a group of adjectives that can be before or after the noun, the relative adjectives. They are relative because we can discuss their meaning. For example, for me the soup may be cold, but for you it may be hot. Cold, hot are relative adjectives. That is, it depends on the person's opinion about the object or what we compare that thing with. Remember that the words mejor and peor always comes before the noun, like in English. Let's check out the apocopation. Apocopation in Spanish is the shortening of a word, usually an adjective or a number. For example, grande becomes gran, bueno becomes buen, alguno, algún, and so on, uno, un, blah, blah, blah. So, and they are always placed before the noun. For example, hoy ha sido un gran día, instead of hoy ha sido un día grande, or hoy ha sido un buen día, instead of hoy ha sido un día bueno. Okay, we are done with the grammar. Let's move on to the topics. Let's dive into diversity in different types of family. For a better understanding how much Spanish families have changed, it is worth to start mentioning the situation during the dictatorship years 1939 to 1975, when families were a large patriarchal model under the influence of the church. No need to say much about this for now, because we will study this in detail in the units 10 and 11. But obviously this changed with the Franco's death in 1975, as I have just said. But let's go to the point. Well, first we have the growth of single-parent families, families where one parent is responsible for raising the children. This has become increasingly common in recent years. Next, there's the rise of blended families. These are families formed by couples who already have children from previous relationships, creating new and diverse family dynamics. We also see the recognition of same-sex parent families, where same-sex couples raise children together. This represents an important step towards inclusion and acceptance in our society. We also have extended families and other forms, which include nuclear families living together with other relatives, or family groups all together. Another form is childless families, couples or individuals who choose not to have children yet still form a household together. Well, finally, it's important to highlight that regardless the type of family, the number of children per household has decreased, and today many families have only one child. Oh, and watch this. According to Radio Televisión Española, in Spain there are now more households with pets than with children. And this trend, known as pet parenting, is becoming increasingly established due to factors such as the difficulty of balancing work and family life, the costs of raising a child, and the search for companionship. The number of registered dogs already exists of children under the age of 14, and the total number of companion animals in the country is now over 30 million. Let's move on to the second topic, living together or getting married. Ever since the late 90s, there has been a growing trend of cohabitation without marriage. Let's look at it in more detail. First, there has been an increase in unmarried couples. So more and more people are choosing to live together without getting married, and this is now widely accepted as normal. We're also seeing the postponement of marriage. Many people are marrying later in life, often due to financial pressures or career priorities or the high cost of weddings. Another key point is social acceptance. Today, cohabitation before marriage has become the norm. In fact, some studies suggest that what's unusual now is not living together before marriage. Well, marriage still exists as an important option, but many couples see cohabitation as a step to get to know each other better before making a formal commitment. There's also what's known as the LAT model, or living apart together. In this case, couples are married but choose to maintain separate homes, keeping their independence while staying connected. Overall, these trends show how much independence matters in modern relationships, both in marriage and cohabitation. Now let's look at divorces. Numbers, causes, and consequences. In 2024, divorces increased compared with the previous year, reaching almost 83,000 cases. In 2023, there were around 80,000 divorces. That's a 5.3% decrease compared to 2022. During 2020, the year the COVID-19 pandemic began, divorce rates fell significantly, but they have since recovered. As for the main causes, we've seen a 47% increase in divorces among people over 60 between 2013 and 2023. This is known as late divorce. Other factors include longer life expectancy, better health among other adults, and broad social changes. Female empowerment has also played a big role. So more women are questioning traditional family roles, according to the National Statistics Institute. Finally, lifestyle trends, an idea known as a liquid love, reflect how fragile modern relationships can be at any age. And what about consequences? Well, nearly half of divorces in 2024 involved shared custody of children. Families also go through reconfiguration, reorganizing after a marital breakup. The emotional impact can be strong, with the stress, anxiety, and other difficulties affecting those involved. Finally, divorce leads to changes in personal and social life. New routines, redefined family ties, and new ways of connecting with others. And finally, let's look at the third point. Married people need a home of their own. Well, first of all, it depends on the type of family we're talking about, whether it's a single parent family, two dads or two moms, or a more traditional setup. But whatever is the case, family life is something that really valued in Spain. The problem is that the government doesn't make it very easy to balance work and family life. Thank you for that. So, in households where both parents are working, families often have to find practical solutions. Asking grandparents to help out, one parent, usually the mom, cutting down their working hours or sending the children to after-school clubs where they can stay until about 8 in the evening when their parents finish work. So, Having said all that, let's move on to the vocabulary. To finish off, I've divided the vocabulary into nouns, verbs, adjectives, and expressions. I haven't included all of them, just the ones that I think are the trickiest and most worth learning. I won't include words you should have learned in your GCSE. But don't forget, the more you learn, the better. So don't just limit yourself to this. You've got the full vocabulary list in your book at the end of each unit. Let's see some tricky words. First of all, the word discutir. Remember that discutir is to argue, is not to discuss. Caer bien. Caer bien is a verb like gustar. Remember that when conjugated, you need to agree the ending with the thing you like or the person you like, not the subject pronoun. And finally, be very careful with the verb apoyar. Apoyar is to support. Soportar, remember that it's to tolerate, to endure, or to put up with somebody. Don't make a mistake. And that's all for today. Remember, grammar gives you structure, social topics give you context, and vocabulary gives you the tools to express yourself. Put them together and your Spanish will only get stronger. Remember to subscribe for more videos. Gracias. Hasta luego.